Greetings everyone, and have a fantastic day. Today I wanted to talk about something that is a bit controversial, and that is why I think that the sequel trilogy that Disney made is irredeemable and why they should completely drop the timeline. There is many fans, I think the vast majority, that agree with me on this, and there is people who love the sequel trilogy and who are really into it, and to all of you I have to say, great for you, good on you, have fun with it, enjoy it. I'm not wanting to take it away from you. What I want is to explain why they've written themselves into a corner and how this is just a really bad spot to base future projects on. There's right now a big stuff happening at Disney, with the execs being completely unhappy on the direction that Star Wars took and the results obviously, and how bad everything is doing. And I think that everything that is based on the sequel trilogy and continues the sequel trilogy is doomed to fail. The very reason for this, there's many reasons for this. One thing that happens to a lot of fans is they are completely losing their interest in Star Wars because of Disney and what they did with the sequel trilogy. I'm not even saying that everything Disney did is bad. The Maul TV show, the Ahsoka TV show, the Rogue One movie, those were all okay. Those were okay products, and many fans enjoy them. The old fans as well, by the way. But most of what came out of Disney is just really bad, like absolutely mind-boggling bad. And the things that I take issue with is that they didn't create completely new stories and characters. When Disney took over, they said that everything other than the 6 original movies is not canon anymore, and they start fresh and do a cut, and expanded universe becomes legacy and nothing of that counts anymore. The problem is that they then took characters from the expanded universe, completely messed them up, took orders and other things from the expanded universe, completely messed them up, took planets, stories and other things from the expanded universe directly and completely messed it up. And they jumbled everything together in a weird salad mix where nobody has a clue what's even happening anymore, and the result is that you now cannot continue any of the previous storylines because they've written themselves into a corner where there's no way out. As example, I just yesterday had a discussion with a guy on how he would redeem the sequel trilogy, and you can't, because all the things that should happen can't happen now, because many characters that were introduced to the sequel trilogies are based on actual real characters that have been there before. They were just done a lot better, and since their stories are already taken, you can't now introduce the original characters, because it would basically just be the same character second time, just in better. Many things that are supposed to happen, like Luke teaming up with the Sith to stop the Yuzhan Wong invasion, can't happen now, because in this storyline all of that should already have happened. What about Luke's wife, Mara Jade? Can you introduce her still? I don't think so, because it would make Luke look even worse. And most importantly, the whole thing with Ben Solo is that he killed Mara Jade in the original storyline. Here, and Luke's anger towards Ben was completely justified. Now, Luke got a weird itch that Ben might turn bad, and what? Like, this is not what happened. And the entire story of the Solo twins is out the window, because the Solos now only had one son and not 3 children, which was the original thing. All the cool stories that happened with Ben Solo and the twins and all the other things can't happen now, because the setup is gone. It's done. There is nothing like that left. The whole Leia trilogy that Lucas wanted to make is impossible, not just because Carrie Fisher passed away, but because the character can't do that anymore, because they have written her in a way that makes what should have happened impossible. The same goes for Han Solo and his great exploits. There is so many story material, the X-Wing, the Rogue Squadron, all of the cool books about Core and Horn, all of these can't happen now, because they would already have happened before the sequels, and the sequels were based on a timeline that makes it impossible for these things to happen now. You can't draw from the expanded universe for the future, because all of that, the whole Darth Krayt thing and the One Sith and all of that, is based on the original expanded universe lore of how how things continued after the Empire, and you can't do it with the setup of the trilogy, this Disney sequel trilogy. And more importantly, the sequel trilogy itself is so full of plot holes. Like, there is 3 or 4 hour long videos per movie, like the YouTubers who list all of the plot holes, make 4 hour long videos on a 2 hour movie, just explaining all the plot holes that happened. And there's good reasons for that too, because when the trilogies were filmed, the script wasn't even done yet. They didn't have a script when they started filming. They are still writing the script as they were going, as they were filming. They had big changes in leadership. They had from Abrams to Johnson, back to Abrams. Johnson threw out everything Abrams laid out, did his own thing, and left Abrams with nothing for the last movie. The sequel trilogies had potential. The first one, Force Awakens, wasn't good, but it set up things that could have become really cool, but it was abandoned in the second movie. And all of those leads that were built up led now nowhere. That is just really bad writing. The other problem is that a lot of things that happen in these movies contradict directly what we know about Star Wars and what should be possible and impossible in Star Wars. Directly conflicts with prior lore, directly conflicts with what many fans hold dear. They did character assassinations on the most beloved characters of all time. They completely missed out on all the insanely good stories about Luke Skywalker and his Jedi Academy. They just failed so hard on every single level. Again, I don't want to say that you can't enjoy these. If you like them, you're free to like them. I like things that most people don't. I enjoyed video games that some people legitimately hate. That's personal taste. The thing that I'm trying to get at is, if you really like the sequel trilogies, please, for the love of all that is holy, please look up the expanded universe. Expose yourself to how Luke's story actually goes. Read up on Mara Jade. Read up on Kyle Katarn, on Corran Horn, on the Rogue Squadron. Read up on how the New Republic evolved after the fall of the Empire. Look at the fights of the Remnant against the remnants of the Empire. Look at the new Sith Order. Look up at look that up to get what you missed because of the sequel trilogy. And the sequel trilogy itself was originally supposed to go a completely different direction. Again, there was much internal problems there, but even so, I think the original stories were so much better, and please look them up. Please watch videos on them. Read the books, anything. Just expose yourself to what you missed out on, because the stories are so much better. And that's why I think that the sequel trilogy is doomed, because now the reaction most fans have when anything comes up that is based on the sequel trilogy is I'm not interested. Like, they are immediately tuning out as soon as anything is connected to the sequel trilogy. There's even stuff that is actually legitimately good that people just go and tune out immediately because it's somehow linked to the sequel trilogy. You can't base the future of Star Wars on such a failed trilogy. You can, but don't, please. Please don't. I'll give you more reasons why in a different video, but to make it short, Star Wars is very important to many people. It's an actual religion. Did you know that? There is the actual Star Wars religion, like acknowledged by several countries on this globe, by several nations, an actual religion, basically on the level of Christianity and others. Not as many followers, obviously, but taken that serious by some people. And you know how making fun of certain religions can go. I'm not saying that that's happening here or anything. I'm just saying you may you may want to show some respect to something that people hold so dear that they are actually basing their immortal soul or whatever on it. Um, you also may want to respect people that have been into Star Wars for 5 decades and fans that carried Star Wars through very dry times. You may want to have some respect for the fandom that made it as big as it is, and you may want to have respect for the writers who created the really good stories and stuff. And what I'm saying is that the sequel trilogy set up something that you can't really follow through with. Now Disney is very, very good at taking expanded universe lore, messing it up and making their own version of it. As examples, the Night Witches of Dathomir. Absolutely badass, super powerful female characters, which they turned into a lesbian witch coven. Like, really? That's all the respect you have for the Night Sisters? Mother Talzin made Palpatine cower in fear. Just as a comparison of how strong these people are, and you're making him to laughingstock. Well done, really. And that happens to so many things in the sequel trilogies and later Disney products, where things that could have been super awesome if you just stuck to the original material and you turn it into shit. You took gold and turned it into shit. Like, how I'm still at a loss for words how that even is possible. Like, all you had to do was to adapt what was there. Bingo. If you had done that, you could have had the same amount of success as the original 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, on the TV show, I mean. Because they stuck to the material and they adapted the source material. The original 3 Lord of the Rings movies were so super successful because the makers, the creators, stuck with the source material as much as they could. Now they did cut some things out and they got backlash for it, but I understand you can't adapt everything from the books. Fine. I'm okay with that. But at least they tried hard to adapt the spirit of the books. And if you had just done that with Star Wars, you'd have twice the fandom that Star Wars ever had. It would have been so huge. And now entire generations are tuning out because you just missed the mark. And I can't blame anyone doing that. If you are Gen Alpha and you've only been experiencing Disney Star Wars, I understand that you are not interested in that. That's bad. Why waste your time with it? But there's so much better stuff, and if you like the sequel trilogy or any of these products, please go back and watch and consume the former products and see how much you like those, because I'm willing to bet that you will love those so much more than what you're liking right now. You're just missing out on it. Now, as for all the lore changes and the weird things, how stuff works with the sequel trilogy, you open up such a can of worms and so many plot holes and problems, because the original trilogy is still canon, right? So what happens in the sequel trilogy directly conflicts with and contradicts what's been in the original 6 movies. You can't base the future of Star Wars on such contradictions, like how the Force works, how anything works really. You can't, and there is so much potential wasted if you go with that. Now there is channels that came up with ideas of how to rectify the situations. Most people are saying that just drop the sequel trilogy and everything based on it, just drop it and forget it. You don't need to apologize, though that would be nice. You don't have to fire people. You don't have, though that might be advisable. You don't have to beg for forgiveness or anything, though some fans would love that. But what you really should do is just sweep it under the rug. No, never mention it again. Just forget that existed and continue with something cool that is not based or in any way touching the sequel trilogy. And then you can have instant fan instantly have more fans, because as soon as you drop this, people will, the long time fans will be interested again in what you can do again. Some would say the wisest thing to do is to sell the entire franchise to Warner Brothers and see what they do with it, so that the goodwill that the fans have is coming back, because right now there is basically none of that anymore. And I understand that, though I don't think Warner Brothers can do a much better job given the state they're in currently, though they might, I don't know. A total reset of the Star Wars franchise is also not advisable, because you did it again and I don't think you have the personnel to do it. Like, you had high value writers turning down Star Wars offers to make Star Wars content because they don't want to taint their reputation with Star Wars. It used to be the exact opposite. People stormed to the LucasArts offices and wanted to do something for Star Wars to increase their reputation and become more known and become more liked as a writer. Now the high value writers don't want to come anywhere near this. So how are you going to make good stories then? I think the best way to move forward with the Star Wars franchise is to either completely scrap the trilogy and say, okay, let's never talk about it, ignore it, and redo the sequel trilogy with the actual story of Luke Skywalker and how things progressed and how he started his Jedi Academy, how he met Mara Jade, how he became friends with Kai Katan, Corran Horn and stuff like that. Do that. That would be amazing, and I think most fans would love you for doing that. And you don't even need super competent writers to do that, because you can just adapt the things that were already written. You literally just have someone that can stick to a script. You don't have to rewrite anything. You just take what's already there. Beautiful, done. The other thing that some suggested is, because there is a multiverse in Star Wars, that you put the entire sequel trilogy and everything based on it in its own parallel universe, and say, well, that's technically speaking a multiverse story. It doesn't touch the main line, and thus we will now do the mainline property, which is basically the same thing, just without sweeping it completely under the rug to not piss off the fans that like that. I think a risky but worthwhile move would be to drop the entire Luke era, because Filoni wants to do more Clone Wars stuff, and I have to say, dude, Clone Wars is done to hell and back. The vast majority of screen content we have for Star Wars is the Clone Wars era. We know it in and out. The Clone Wars didn't last that long. How many times do we need to see the exact same thing happening in the Clone Wars? I get that you like the Clone Wars, you build up that timeline, but dude, not the way to go forward. Absolutely not. People like the Clone Wars era, don't get me wrong, but I think there's already so much material based on the Clone Wars that you shouldn't go deeper into that. If you want to go with the original Luke era, now you have the problem that the original crew, like Carrie Fisher, is no more. She can't be hired, and Harrison Ford is not interested, and I think even Mark Hamill is tuned out at this point. And people would not react well to recasting those roles, though you would need to, because you'd have to have a 30-year-old Luke Skywalker, which obviously Mark Hamill is a little bit too old for by now. And I think that there is a lot of grudges because you missed that opportunity. And I think it's not a good idea to do the actual post-Empire era with new casting, because lots of fans will hate you for recasting those roles. You probably shouldn't touch that for another 1 or 2 generations. And that's on you, by the way. You could have done that before, now you can't, because you character assassinated all of those. So you can't really move forward with that. The risky move would be to go Old Republic and bring all of the cool video game stories to life. Cool thing about that, you have a big ass fan base. I believe that the hardcore fan base that's still sticking to Star Wars right now is the video game audience, because video games were luckily not affected by the whole Disney change, and the video games coming out are still great. Well, except Outlaws, but most video games coming out are great, and there is cool writing, there's good writing, there's cool characters, there's so many great stuff happening that I think adapting that will give, you will have a large fan base right there that would love you for bringing it to screen if you do it right. That's a lesson every franchise, any movie or TV show taking on video game adaptations is well advised to stick to the script. I have to stress it out so hard. Stick to the script, guys. You won't reinvent the wheel. You don't need to. You won't do better than the original authors. Just stick to it and put on screen what was there before. People would love that because they already love the characters, they already love the stories, they already love everything that's happening in there. Don't mess it up by making it better, because your idea of better is much inferior and worse in the eyes of almost everyone else. You won't do better, just stick to it. Just be a good intern and do what you're told and stick to the script. You won't do better than that. Honestly, you won't. Just stick to the script and adapt what has been there. Yeah, but that's a different generation. That stuff, the material is sometimes 30 years old. Yeah, so what? That's what a classic is. Romeo and Juliet is still considered a classic, and it's well liked and beloved, and it is like, I don't know, 400 years old or something. You have stories that are even older than that, and they work fantastically. There's a thing about timeless stories. They are timeless. They're classics for a reason. You can show this to any generation and they will like it, and they will find themselves in it because it's timeless. It's not based on a single trend that passed in 10 years or something. By the way, don't do trend chasing. It always ends up aging poorly. Just do timeless stories, and Old Republic content has that. Old Republic has so many cool characters, so many cool stories, and I think that would be the correct way to go. It's risky because the vast majority of Star Wars fans, I've talked about different levels of fandom, don't know the video game characters. They don't know the Old Republic era. So for them this is completely new. They have never been exposed to that. There is not a single character in the Old Republic that they know. There is at least some institutions that they know, like the Jedi, the Republic, the Empire. Well, not even the Empire really, because the Sith Empire is way different, as are the Sith, by the way. There's some planets that they might still know, but character-wise, there's not a single character in the Old Republic that the movie/TV show audience knows, except they are really hardcore, die-hard fans, because some, like Darth Revan, Darth Bane, I think even Marka Ragnos made appearances in the TV shows, and those are in the Old Republic to some extent at least. So I guess those can not only be considered canon by Disney, because they are, but most characters, the vast majority of the Star Wars fans are completely oblivious to, which might also be a good thing, because now you can show people how cool Star Wars actually is and what they missed out on for all their lives. And I think you gain a huge amount of followings right there, and you don't need to change politics or anything, because it's a classical timeless story. You don't need to adapt modern current politics or anything into it. Just show it as it is. And there's great people of color in there, there's great women in there, there's great men in there. On all sides of the spectrum there is disabled people of all kinds. If you are into that, it's already there. Just adapt it as it is and it's fine. Don't focus on it, for the love of God, don't. Just do it as it was and people will love you for it. It's, I said, a little bit risky because people don't know the era yet, so it's a bit of a leap, and your goodwill is already gone. and you won't be getting that back until you consistently crank out really good content, which you could do if you just adapt the Old Republic, though you shouldn't expect an immediate success, because again, most people are oblivious to it. They might not be interested because there's nothing in there that they know. So, risky. On the other hand, you did do the High Republic comics, and that's an era nobody was interested in, and nobody knew. So if you're liking to take the risk, Old Republic is almost guaranteed to be a huge success. I can't imagine it not going super well in the long term, but you have to invest in it, and you have to do it properly. You have to set it up properly. You can't just start right in the middle of it. You have to do some build up, because most people, if you just throw them in this world, they won't understand anything. They won't understand why there's multiple Sith now. They won't understand how there is a Sith Empire. They don't know what timeline they're in. They don't know what kind of weird Jedi they are seeing there. They won't know the conflicts. They won't know some of the species. They basically will be flabbergasted by how the Force works and the Force powers that they see. You have to do a little build up. Some people suggest to use the multiverse to do that, like and to rectify the situation, have one beloved canon character from the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy time travel, which exists in Star Wars, time travel back to Old Republic era times, and have them experience the Old Republic as point of the viewer, with them being completely clueless about the timeline and just having to experience and gain knowledge on the Old Republic as the audience does. Could work. You'd have at least one beloved character, but the risk you're running that, first of all, depending on your character choice, that will go really bad. Because in comparison to the Old Republic era guys, almost all canon characters are extremely weak. They won't survive, they won't stand a chance, they are more or less just underdogs. Even Vader is comparatively weak in the Old Republic era. He's not he is still strong, but he's nowhere near the top dogs. Like, he is maybe in the top 50 strongest Sith if he goes back to Old Republic era. Same for the Jedi. If you put, say, Luke back there, Luke will do fine as a Jedi, but he's nowhere near the level of, say, Satele. Not gonna happen. He is way weaker than that. So you run the risk of making a beloved character into a weak character, and you're having to tell an underdog story where your main character is actually more a watcher of the things that happen rather than influencing what happens. And I don't think many people will like that a lot. More importantly, you're setting up the potential to change the story that actually happened, because if, say, Luke Skywalker goes back in time and experiences the Old Republic, how will that affect him? How will it change him? How will he change things? And how will he affect the timeline? Because if it's the main character that we are following, it's kind of boring if the character is just an NPC happening to go through the world. We want the main character to do stuff, and if Luke Skywalker does stuff, it changes the timeline. So I'm not a big fan of that. Depends on the character though. If you take a character that people know but isn't like super powerful or anything to begin with, and already was sort of an NPC in the original timeline, might work because his role won't change and he won't affect anything really big. On the other hand, such characters are usually not the ones that people love all that much, so not sure. I think if you wanna stick with Disney, one character to do that with would be Grogu, because Grogu people kinda like, sorta, somewhat, and Grogu isn't that powerful and he can't do that much, and he'd be completely oblivious to the era and stuff like that. For the original trilogy, I really can't imagine a character doing that well. Like maybe Ahsoka, maybe, and that's also something for Filoni because he loves the character as he is the creator of it. But Ahsoka might work, but you really, really have to be okay with her being basically powerless and more in the way than helping anything. Then again, she has the right mindset and she may be able to give the viewer a more or less unbiased look at things. Other characters, I don't know. Han Solo could work, probably, because for him there's not much changing. So that could work, I suppose. And he isn't having a big impact on the universe either, so that may work. Yeah, some have made fan theories. What if say Darth Tyrannus went back in time and stuff like that? I don't think that's a good idea, but some characters might work with this. So I've been rambling on for way too long and I need to get to work. So have a nice day and may the force be with you.